just arrived on scene. We've made sure that we're in the right location where we're not above any power lines. We're in the optimal position for whatever building, whatever situation we're going to be in, that we can get the optimal reach with the ladder in the back. So we've arrived. We're going to make sure, just like we always do driving, that we're going to put the truck in neutral. We're going to pull this parking brake out. And these are some of the differences when you're setting up the ladder. You're going to push in this front wheel lock. And you're going to flip on aerial master. Switch right here. And aerial PTO, which is right to the right of that. And when you turn on aerial PTO, you're going to start hearing some little alarms go off. And now, foot's off the brake, and we're ready to go set up the ladder. So now the first thing we're going to want to do is set up the wheel chocks. We're going to do these on both sides. It has to be on the front wheels, and we're going to give a little bit of space that you'll see there. We're not going to hug them close into the tire. We're going to give them a little bit. That way when we raise the ladder up a little bit on these stabs, and then we lower it when we're done, the tire's not going to be on those wheel chocks. Gives a little room. We're going to go to the back of the truck. We opened up this main compartment and these two side compartments. This main compartment has all of your controls for accessing either the stabilizers or the aerial. Shows you if the stabilizers are fully engaged, which we'll see in a second, and allows you to turn high idle on and off. Those are the things you're mainly going to use that for. These secondary panels allow you to control the stabilizers on that side, allow you to bring them out and in and up and down. So we'll go see that. Making sure that these stabilizers are all the way out, and I'm not going to put them down yet, and you'll see why in a second. It's important to note when you do that, make sure that there's no one walking there so you don't hit them as the stabilizer comes out. So now that we know where the stabilizers are going to be, we can take these metal pads and put them under the stabilizer. You could do it before you take the stabilizers out, but then you might have to go back and rearrange them. By putting the stabilizers out first, we know exactly where the pads need to go. pads down, you'll notice there's a little handle. I made sure the handle wasn't out where people are walking, just so that way it's not a trip hazard. I made sure that it was inside where people aren't going to walk, so it's not going to get in the way. People aren't going to trip over it. Now that those are down, we can put the stabs down and lift the ladder up a little bit. We don't want to lift the ladder up a lot. We just want to take the pressure off of the tires. And right now we're pretty flat, so it's not a big deal. But if the ladder were at an angle like this, we're going to want to raise the higher angle, the higher side first. That way we only have to do it once. So we raise that up a little bit, and then we're able to fully compensate on the other side, as opposed to lifting here and then lifting here and having to go back. It's flat right now, so we can start on either side. When we do this, we've got these two little gauges to show how level you are. This is going front to back, so we're good here. This is going side to side, and you can see we're a little off on this side. It's in the green, so it would be good, but we'll just try to make it as perfect as we can. Now you see that it's pretty close to that 0 point, so that's good. You also notice on these stabs, I only lifted it so it was just above that circle. You don't want it so that the circle is halfway covered. You don't want it so it's way above the circle. You want to lift the stabs so that they're just above the circle, because now we're going to put in pins. So as a safety mechanism, so if the stab were to fail, it'll land on the pin so the whole truck doesn't come crashing down. Here's the pins. There's this yellow head to it, and we're gonna put this in. And we're not gonna put it in all the way. We're gonna take it out just enough so that if that stab fell, it wouldn't hit the yellow piece. It's also important to note, if the truck is angled like this, if this were uphill, we'd want to put those pins on the other side because they'd probably fall out. So you want to put them on the uphill side of wherever the ladder is. Again, it's flat right here, so you can put them in on either side. So if it was uphill like this, I put the pin in this way. But seeing as it's flat, I can put it in this way or this way. All right. You'll also notice that ringing stopped. each of the stabs has a little alarm. So when it's not set correctly, it'll alarm. So right when you turn it on, when we hit that aerial PTO, the alarms went off because they weren't set properly. Now they're set properly, so you don't hear the alarms, and you can tell they're set properly because of these lights. It indicates each of the stabilizers, and it's green if it's set correctly, and if it's not, then it won't be, and the alarm will go off. Close these. And now all we have to do is switch from stabilizer to aerial with this little switch. Now we're in aerial mode. We'll close this up so that no one plays with it. And we're ready to go and run the aerial. So now we're up on the top of the ladder, ready to run it. Everything's been set down below. When you're on a fire scene, you're more than likely going to want to go and put this into high idle. When you put it into high idle, it allows you to use the ladder more quickly. Everything moves faster. You can also use high idle when you're setting up the stabs. There's a control down on that main panel, and it'll allow you to bring the stabs out quicker. So we're going to turn on high idle, and we're going to go start bringing the ladder up. Now high idle's back off. We're just going to keep it off for sound purposes. But how I use these controls, there's just 3 little levers. One is in, out. So the ladder going out, back in, right, left, moving right, left, and then up, down, which is the ladder going up and down. And all you're going to do is there's these little tabs below. You pull them up, and as they're up, you either go one direction or the other. It's also important to note that you can do 2 levers at once. So I can go up and left at the same time. I can go left and out. You can do any combination you want. But what you should try to do is be mindful of anything overhead. So be mindful of power lines or a bridge or trees or anything that might get in your way. Obviously here we're pretty in the open. It's also important to note that you might not be able to go exactly where you want to go. There might be a tree in the way or some sort of obstruction where you have to go all the way around before you can get to where you want to be. It's not always just, oh, I can turn left and get to that window, or I just turn right. You might have to do some maneuvering to get where you need to go, especially in areas like downtown. It's also very important that you use caution, especially when the ladder is extended. When you're going fast, you want to, if you're extending, as you start to stop, you want to make sure it's slow and gradual. The farther out that ladder is, and you make any movements, they're magnified at the tip, and you can break the ladder. You can do damage. So when I go right, I'm going to start slow. I'm not just going to jam it right to the right, because that tip is going to go back and forth. It's going to fling. When I stop, I make slow movements. So that's a big key here. You have to move with a purpose, but especially when you're starting or slowing, you want to make, or stopping, you want to make sure that you do it slowly. ready to put the ladder back in the bed, there's a couple ways we can make sure that we get it in correctly. One of them you'll see is there's a little red mark down by the controls. You want those two arrows lined up, which they pretty much are right now. That's one way to tell. You should also just be able to look and be able to guide it yourself. You've got two antennas on the sides, and the bed of the ladder on the cab has two little prongs that come up on either side. If you've got another person up here, they can kind of guide you and tell you that you're too close, you're too far from one side. Or you can just stop the ladder like I did now, and I can look and go, okay, that looks pretty good. Let me start going down again. So now I can go down. I know I'm not going to hit the antenna. Looks good on this side, but as I get closer, I'm just going to stop it, double check. Yeah, looks like it probably will work. I might go a little to the left. And again, small movements, especially when you're this close to the cab. You don't need to go jostling back and forth. Small movements. And there we go. Before we get off, I'm just going to make sure that it's in all the way. The ladder's in all the way. And I'm going to make sure that there's downward pressure. You don't have to hold it a lot. Just give it an extra little bit to make sure that it's in all the way and there's downward pressure on the cab. And with that, we're all set to go back down and put everything away. So now we're ready to put everything away. First thing we can do is open up this compartment. Open up these side ones. And before we start moving the stabs, you're going to have to put those pins back. Pretty simple. Take them. Put them in their holders. Now that the pins are back, we can switch from aerial, which controls the ladder portion, to stabilizer, so we can put the stabs away. Again, we could switch to high idle here and make things faster if we wanted to. So we'll start. You can hear that alarm come back on again. Because the stabs they're not ready to use the aerial. So the alarm's going to come back on. Make sure that the stabs are up all the way. And then bring each in. You don't have to be too gentle. You want some of that pressure to make sure that everything stays in. Now we've got no more need for this. We can close these up so no one touches the stabs. And now we have to go put these plates away. says what side's up. The up side goes on the top. Now that both sides are up, all we have to do is put the wheel chocks away. Turn off a couple switches and then we're all set. So now we're back in the truck, everything's put away, done a 360, made sure that everything's all set, there's no tools out, everything's all good. We're just gonna turn off that aerial PTO, turn off that aerial master switch, and now we're gonna drive away, put it in drive, push the parking brake in just like you would normally. That's going to disengage that front wheel lock, and we're ready to go.